Hi everybody, my name is Shelly Moore and I am here for our very first episode, 5 More Minutes, Home Learning Edition, special mini-series, and today's topic is, what the heck is continuous learning? Okay, my friends, hello, welcome to our very first episode of 5 More Minutes, Home Learning Tips, special mini-series, special edition. This is a little side project that I'm teaming up with the ministry on. To kind of give our support to some of our families who I know are struggling right now. I have been looking online, and I think probably one of the most common thing that I'm seeing out there is kids and families and teachers and everyone's just feeling so overwhelmed. And I'm wondering why that is. And so I've been doing a little research on distance learning, and what's really standing out to me is, the more that I'm researching about distance learning, the more I'm realizing is that this is not the context that we're in. This situation that we're in right now is not about distance learning. We are really, we're coping through a crisis. And so the expectations that we're putting on ourselves right now are not the same as they would be if we were in a distance learning situation. And so today we're going to talk about, what really is the difference between kind of typical distance learning and what's happening right now. And if you remember in the very early days when school was beginning to start to shift away, and kids coming home, a really important term was used that I didn't really think about at first, but what it was called was continuous learning. And if you really kind of look into what that concept means, it's really quite important, because the concept of continuous learning is different than new learning, okay? And so I think there's been a lot of struggle in the communities that I've been connected to, because I think there's been kind of this weird kind of expectation that we've all had to recreate conditions of school in our homes. But it's such an impossible scenario, because our homes aren't school. It's not the same at all. And also we're dealing with a crisis right now, right? And so we have families who have lost jobs. We have families who are still working full-time at home, and so to recreate conditions of school in the home is a really unrealistic goal. And so a lot of families are like, well, I can't meet that goal, and some of them are just checking out. And the part that's really hard is, I've noticed a lot of families, especially families who have kids with disabilities, who are really struggling because many of the supports for their kids were at home. The other thing that's really tricky is that a big tool that has been used for distance learning or for continuous learning is technology. And technology is not as accessible to all kids. And so it's adding another layer of that feeling of, how do we do this? Like, this has happened very, very fast. And so today what I really kind of want to communicate, especially if you're a family watching this, and a family who has kids in their home with disabilities, is to really understand what this concept of continuous learning means. And so there's kind of two really big ideas that we're going to talk about, and really important features that I want us to kind of keep at the front of our heads right now, from now until the end of the year, until June, to really, for always when we're at home, is to really think about two things. So the first thing we want to talk about is, when we're in a crisis, which is what's happening in the world right now, a really important big idea, and how all of us cope and process crisis is through connection. And so this is the first goal, is how do we keep kids connected? Now, this could look many ways. This could be connected to peers. This is connected to teachers, support staff, to the school community. I see some really beautiful, it's bringing tears to my eyes. The school parades that are happening so that kids can see their teachers and to see the staff that they're used to seeing every day, because their lives have been just completely turned upside down. So it just examples like that, where we can see each other, where we can talk to each other, just ways to stay connected. This can also mean connected to people outside of our homes, right? I know I've been living with my family now for 7 weeks, and I would love to see some of my friends who are not in this house right now, right? And so even just being able to connect with people that we're not used to seeing, connection is going to be a really big thing right now, especially because everyone's going through the same thing. And if you ever have a crisis, you just want to be with people who are also experiencing that crisis with you. So connection is going to be number one. every day, if that's all we do, we're doing okay. The second big idea that I want us to think about is when we're talking about continuous learning, the other second big idea is that the continuous learning does not mean new learning. But what it does mean, it means that we want to keep kids also connected to learning, which means we want to keep them engaged, okay? And so engagement is a very different goal than brand new learning. Now, in the best case scenario, we want to keep kids connected and engaged so that they can do new learning. But the goal right now is not new learning. The goal right now is connection and continuous learning. And so for the rest of these videos, we're going to look at ways to keep kids connected and to keep kids engaged. Those are the big two ideas. Like I'm really zooming in specifically right now on kids with disabilities who are probably feeling very disconnected and very unengaged. And but like I say, this I think can apply to all kids. I also really want to focus on in these videos tools and tips that are not necessarily reliant on technology. When I'm making these videos, I'm making them with parents in mind, knowing that they are working. You probably have multiple kids in your home. You're probably stressed because you're also going through a crisis. So if I can act as a connector for you as well, I would absolutely love that. So this is kind of our first video. If anything, I want it to kind of be like a permission granting, take a deep breath. The goal for our families is not to recreate schools, not to become educators or teachers. It's almost like giving you permission to just be your family, and how can us as a school system support you to get through this crisis with those two goals in mind: connection and engagement. And if we can come out of this with those two things in check, our kids are going to be great. They are exactly where they need to be. And we're getting through this. We are all experiencing this at the same time. And so I hope if you're watching this, take a deep breath, go for a walk outside, connect with your kids, connect with your family members. And I'm gonna have another video in a couple of days. We're gonna look at a new tip. But before we do any other videos, I just want to make sure kind of like what are the big goals of this whole series, so that we know kind of what we're prioritizing, what's really important for this time. But I'm also going to leave you with a challenge. Because I know that this is a crisis right now, and it's really hard to kind of like get really overwhelmed. And what I have found is a really good strategy to kind of think about at the end of every day is to kind of be like, okay, so like what's going well, like what is working during this time? Because I'm also talking to a lot of families who are like, this home learning has been the best thing for my kids ever. And so I think that we're going to learn, our education system is really going to learn from this time around what's really important for kids, how do we prioritize important things for kids, because there's also a lot of kids thriving, and I think that's something to really pay attention to. So that's my challenge for you today, is talk to someone in your home or do a reflection with yourself and be like, what can we learn from this time? What is working for our kids? What do we want to hold on to so that when all of this is over, we can be like, you know what? That pandemic time, actually, there was something that I could take away from it that's going to help my kids in the future. So that's going to be what I want you to think about. What's working? What do we want to hold on to? In our next episode of 5 More Minutes Special Home Learning Edition, is we are going to look at how can we explain the situation to kids with disabilities. And so we're going to look at how do you explain COVID, how do you explain pandemics to kids who may have a hard time or need some access and understanding what that means. If you don't want to miss it, make sure you subscribe. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We're going to be on all of the what are those social platforms? All of the platforms. And definitely pay attention to this post, because we're going to have an opportunity for question and answer every week. And so if you have some questions connected to this episode, take a look in the post. I'll have a time and a date there where we can have a little live connection, because I want to connect with you, and I want to see how you're doing and how you're managing families, how you're managing through this time. But I want you to know that I want to be here and offer a support to you. So if you have ideas for videos, if you have specific questions that you want to answer, with the post of this video, you're going to see an opportunity to do that. Thank you so much for tuning in. I love you. I appreciate you. Let's get through this together. The spring is in the air, my friends, but take a deep breath. Everything you're doing is great. Our kids are exactly where they need to be, and I will see you in a couple of days.